And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate, lending, and learning come together. It is June 24th, and this is your mortgage market update. Stocks are lower as coronavirus cases spike in 23 states. Also, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, projecting a global growth to be negative 4.9% globally here in 2020, with a projection to rebound of 5% growth in 2021. The IMF also stated a $10.7 trillion fiscal fight against the pandemic globally cost. Unbelievable numbers that we're dealing with now. The MBA, or Mortgage Bankers Association, released mortgage application data. Overall applications dropped by 8%. Purchases were down for the first time in 10 weeks, and overall applications are still up due to the number of refi applications that are still coming in. Capacity is causing a lot of slow or decline in this. It's not based on demand, it's more of capacity where lenders are slowing the transaction process down. Rates are still very strong, remaining unchanged at 3.3%. The Federal Housing Finance, or FHFA agency, which measures home price appreciation on single-family homes, home prices rose 0.2% in April and 5.5% year over year. In new home sales, which measures signed contracts on new homes, was reported up 16.6% in May. The inventory of new homes has decreased, while median home pricing increased 4.9%. So the market is really getting strong in the sense of sale pricing and demand. Comparing existing home sales to new home sales, we see an uptick in new home sales correlating to opening up of certain states. This means demand is very high and existing home sales will increase as people get out more and more to be shopping. So get pre-approved if you're in the market to be purchasing a new home. Even in the civil unrest in many areas, we are seeing demand grow. More renters are desiring to move in the market, and refis are still high in demand. Rates are staying low across the board, and they fully expect it to be through the end of the year, rates remaining. Today, I have with us Jeff Duffy with Fidelity Title and Ken Jilick with Go Texas Notary. I am really excited. Guys, welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you,
Blair. Thank you.
Man, I'm excited about our topic because when I came into the industry, e-signing was one of the things that we were able to offer, but we weren't able to maximize it due to whether the title company was available, or they would blame it on the lender, or they would blame it on, so many different reasons. But the thing is, with COVID-19 and other things impacting our industry, this has really moved forward a lot. Ken, would you say that's a correct statement, that it's become more acceptable?
Absolutely. When I first got into this, doing the remote online notarization, it was just last year in August. I'd been a notary for some time. I decided to become a signing agent so I could go out and handle mortgage transactions. And while I was looking at that, I was noticing there was a lot of data on the Secretary of State's website for notaries about remote online notarization. Now, frankly, I didn't know that much about it, but being kind of a technology geek, I thought, heck, I'll go ahead and sign up for this and see whether or not it has any traction.
We do see that with you with the professional microphone and the headset. Jeff and I are, look at us. We're just, plain Jane, nothing professional. So we appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, help me understand. I believe notary e-signing has been made available for like 12, 15 years.
You're exactly right. It's been around for a long time. There's a lack of ambition, is perhaps the best way to put it, with a lot of the banks and closing agencies to want to use that technology. Now, unfortunately, they've had to learn it very, very quickly because COVID has pushed them into a completely new world. The first states to embrace the remote technology were Virginia, and number two, I believe, was Texas. When I first got into this, there were only 5 states that offered it. Currently, we're up to about 25 right now. But the scramble was so intense when COVID broke out that I was doing notarizations for companies that were trying to close mortgages in Virginia from Dallas, Texas.
Wow. That's impressive.
Well, it was impressive and scary at the same time because it was a whole new world for us. The people at Fidelity embraced this very, very quickly. And we were able to use their technology with another vendor, one of the platforms that was out there. And it was exciting. But I mean, on some days I would be doing Virginia in the morning and Arizona in the afternoon. It was pretty wild.
Wow. Well, Jeff, take us back a bit and explain or help our listeners understand why is the acceptance of this technology that's been around, Fannie, Freddie, VA, USDA, has all said it's okay to receive documents this way. Why is the acceptance and the use of it? Is it just because of those fancy title offices that we want people going into them? What is the reason for the last years that we're not utilizing this technology?
Well, I think there's a couple factors there. First of all, in our industry, it was very surprising, for lack of better terms, that Texas was one of the states that jumped in early in front of this. Because as Texas goes, we typically kind of sit back and go, okay, let's see what everybody does. Let's let them work the kinks and the bugs out. And then we're going to kind of learn from that and go forward. I think it was really good for our industry that Texas jumped up there out in front with a couple of those states Ken mentioned and said, okay, let's go for this. Let's make this happen. But back to what you said as far as your question, I'm here. How do you like this term here? What I understand it was, in so many ways, everyone on the lending side wanted to make sure of their methods of making sure the docs and the safety and the security was in place. That's the key. I don't know. When you've got Freddie and everybody saying it's okay, but everybody's saying, okay, we've got to make sure we can do everything correctly. And that's what I understood. So you like how I use that term? There's my scapegoat.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Ken, I feel so abused by title companies because they always blame it on the lender, don't they?
Hey, it's a give and take, Blair.
It is. I admit it. But I mean, and please, listeners, we have live comments going on. Also, I believe you can call in as well. I'm sure our head production manager can put that up there on the screen, but don't hesitate to comment on and ask questions here as we fully discuss and try to fully understand. There's that phone number to understand this, because I'll be honest with you, my past experience with it, I'm going to take you back a little bit. 4 years ago, had a veteran closing a home, wanted to move in over the weekend, could only close on Friday, but really wanted to focus in on his stuff coming in. We were able to close through this technology that morning and literally fund within 30 minutes so that he started moving in. We closed at 9:30. He was moving boxes in his home from that truck. And now this is an example of how this technology can be utilized to really be successful and impact a client's life and lifestyle, life desires. Does that make sense? I mean, are y'all seeing this? Or because how long does a normal closing take, Jeff? I mean, would they come into the office?
5 minutes to an hour and a half, up to
45 to an hour and a half.
Range, but there you go.
And again, you never offer any massages when they get done signing, because they're signing their name 65 to 68 times, depending on the type of loan. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And I got to believe, at least from my vantage point, this technology, even though some of it I believe it does make you sign each time. You still sign 66, but it's signed digitally. There is technology that you can sign once. Those signatures and initials go everywhere it's needed. And that for a 65 to an 80-year-old person buying a home. Now that gets kind of rare, but reverse mortgages are there. A lot of documents to sign, save a lot of time, signing once, and we're done. I mean, this seems to be a huge benefit.
Absolutely. It's a huge benefit. And as a 65-year-old, I'll tell you, it's something I would welcome. And every time I bought a home in the past, I walk out of the room with writer's cramp. I don't care how old you are.
Yeah, they never offer you massages or anything to loosen you. I'm trying to figure out.
I only ask if they were informed to do some exercising before they got there that day. That's the only thing I've asked. Did anyone tell you? Here's the question I do have, in the sense that, Ken, and you can tell me, there's a difference in saying, okay, Ken can take a signature and apply it to every document in that package. It could be 125 pages. Now, I think the difference is, and I've done a couple different forms of these e-sign, but there's one version where you hit a thumbprint to mark that I have seen that page. And I think that's critical for an underwriter who's lending someone. You can be from $100,000 to $500,000.
Absolutely.
They don't know. You know, we joke in our industry that the closing package keeps getting thicker and thicker. There's more signatures. Well, the underwriter needs to know for that amount of money that you saw that item, that you at least had the opportunity to read it, whether you read it or not is your but the thumbprint or making sure you saw that, I think, is the key.
Absolutely. I mean, from a notary perspective, the traditional notarial act, the reason I'm there is to make sure that there's no identity fraud going on, and that indeed I did see them transact all of these signatures on the documents that they have in front of them. And so the remote notarization really adds an element of ease for the client, but it also gives a lot of safety and security to the lenders as well, because there's something I can do with remote that you can't do just sometimes with an e-signature. I love the fact that I can film the transaction. Many people don't realize that the remote online notarization needs to be filmed from beginning to end. And that film is held for 5 years up in the cloud. And if there's ever a question about, hey, did Mr. So-and-so really sign that document? All I have to do is pull the video and show it to him.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that it was stored and videoed and stored that long. I want to take a step back real quick and go back to something Jeff talked about. And we're talking about the quantity, okay? Let's just talk about the number of signatures. Tell me, either one of you, Ken or Jeff, tell me exactly how many documents are critical to that lending solution that the lender needs to receive. How many out of 68 signatures do we actually need?
Jeff, you saw me point. You're handling that.
There's probably half a dozen.
Half a dozen, 6.
And that's my opinion. See, I'm going to sell it that way.
Well, I'm sitting there going, okay, we've got the actual loan itself, the agreement to the loan. You've got the notary of title or the deed of trust.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as I understand it, there's only 3. Help me understand what these all 6 are that you're talking about.
Well, I would give as a lender, as an underwriter, to say, okay, your 1003, which is your loan application. That is your saying, this is my financial status, even though you're pulling credit reports. I think that would be something that someone would want in a file, signed, acknowledging this is my information I've provided you, and plus a few affidavits like your homestead affidavit. This is my homestead. That has to do with your taxes in the state of Texas. So that would be another. So we're right at 6. I'll pull another one out if you let me think a minute. But
how about the release for tax records? If they ever want to go back and check it, they've certainly scoured everything that you've submitted to them. But if there is a mistake or an error, they want to be able to go back and tap it. So you do sign a document for that as well.
Well, and the funny thing is, I bring this up, and hopefully our listeners will understand. To my knowledge, there's only really 3 to make the loan effective, to make it actual. There are 65 to 68 forms that they actually sign. And most of these forms are CYA forms. Mm-hmm. If everybody here knows what CYA means. And it's whether it's state or federal level. I get laughed and so humorous about, at the state level, if you've lied on the 1003, you know it's a state level. And then the federal, it's a federal level. Do not lie on your, and it's saying the same thing. I mean, and we've caused this a plethora of CYA documentation to be up to 68 signatures for this person to buy a home, where it used to be you could shake the hand of a banker and get a car note, like that if necessary. So we are trying to come back with this technology to make it easier and simpler for people to do their opportunity, especially when we run across so many situations. One of them I'm running across right now. I've got a seller leaving the country on the July 10th. And guess what? They're supposed to fund on the 13th. This is still possible, but we want to make it easier. Now, do we sign early and then store the documents till the 13th? Or can they do a mobile notary? whether it be in another country or on a ship or something along that line. This is possible now, right, Ken?
It is possible. Now, the only impediments that might occur in a situation like that, and these are minor things, but it's something you'd want to discuss with whoever you want to do the remote online notarization with, is what's the availability of technology while you're trying to do this. And specifically, you want to be sure you have a really good internet connection. And like all things in life, what you think is good may not be as good as what I think is good. Now, if you have a simple URL that you can type in, it's just speedtest.net, and run that to see what number you come up with. And if it's 22 or higher, we don't need to get into what it is they're measuring. If it's 22 or higher, I generally can do whatever it is I need to do, because again, it's a video audio transaction that we're going through. So I need to have pretty good connection. I've done a few of these in China where they'll tell me, "Oh boy, I've got a great internet connection," and I find out that it's hiss pop, coming on, going off.
Is it dial-up?
Well, no, it's not dial-up, but it's pretty poor. And I don't want to offend any of our Chinese friends, but there's a lot of Big Brother going on over there. My laptop will not run right for 3 days after I've done a notarization in China. It's amazing how much pounding my VPN gets on the other side.
Oh, I bet. All the cookies you need to delete off your system, I'm sure. And what he's talking about on the speed test, and speed test, just for basic technology information, everyone should know, is the upload download speeds that you receive through your internet connection, your internet provider. That's a common thing I think anybody should know, and how it's being utilized with all the video streaming, movie streaming, Facebooking, YouTubing that we're doing. I mean, again, if people understand download and upload and where the critical spots are, you can keep a bottleneck from happening if you understand that. We are very blessed at my house to have 400 megabit upload download, and but I required my wife, if she wants me to work at home, she's got to upgrade that. Otherwise, we both cannot be working from home.
Does she want you working at home is the real question.
No, she does. She just started working from home from Frisco ISD. They pushed her out of the office. They say, "Don't come back. You're going to work from there. You're in accounting. You're not, you're not essential on post here. We can do with you working from home." But I'm such a hog on my VPN, with what we do in our industry. Mm-hmm. I either can't work or I hog it all, and she can't work. So she's got to upgrade that, and we'll see how quickly she does or does not. So, but getting back to, how has COVID affected your business, and what have you seen? Share some stories on what you've been able to do.
Sure.
And how the impact, because you hear about new normal, new things. I think we're going to be going into something that's a little different than what we were doing. And I think maintaining this, or being aware of this technology, can help us make better business decisions and personal decisions for our clients.
There's no question. I am embarrassed to say this, but I guess maybe I'm happy at the same time to say it, that this is probably going to change a lot as far as notarization is concerned. For example, one of the clients that I have is a hospital. They have a situation where they don't want diseased people getting anywhere near papers and then having to take those papers in and out of a diseased area. So they're using remote online notarization a lot, because if I could just for a second, I'll explain the process. Is someone will send to me typically either a Word or PDF document, and then I will open the document, get a transaction going with audio and visual, and then we execute the document together. At no point does anybody have to touch that piece of paper. I can keep it all electronic. And that's really critical for a hospital. They love that, especially when you're doing directives, etc. The same thing can happen with mortgage documents as well. Just one of the war stories that I have, this is not necessarily COVID, but it's very similar to the situation you were describing before. You have, I had a gentleman who was in the Metroplex who was a translator for the United States Army and was sent over to Iraq to help facilitate translations. Now he's at an undisclosed location. I mean, he couldn't even tell me where he was, but he had pretty good internet and he had access to his email. And from those two, we were able to do a sale of his house in the Metroplex while he was sitting in Iraq.
While he was deployed, huh?
Exactly. Now, I won't tell you all the horror stories with it, because I mean, it was edgy trying to get it done, because it would hiss and pop, and like you were saying, people would start using up the bandwidth, and we would lose the ability. But I mean, we got it done, and that was, to me, it was very impressive that we could pull that off that far away.
Well, it is, and it allows, people like Jeff and I to think about solutions to help people not be concerned or not be anxious about getting a situation, make us aware of it so that we can work around it. I got to tell you, this is one guy that has done some unbelievable things. And another veteran, he was refinancing his home down in Coppers Cove, Texas. Of course, that's right close to Killeen. And but this gentleman literally worked as a contractor for a major corporation, Fortune 50, and could not. It was major time frame to do this as well as do his job. So he said, "Hey, Blair, the best thing I can do for you is 7 o'clock to 7:30 in the morning." So what does Jeff do? He's a go-to provider. He didn't do this. He says, "No, we're driving down at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're going to Coppers Cove. We go get it done in their house. We're signing up. We're done by 7:30, coming back home." I mean, that's the type of wonderful partnership that he provides. But this allows us the opportunity to do that in an easier way and save him a 3-hour drive.
Absolutely. But it doesn't save me a time zone problem, because the translations that I've had, or the transactions I've had to do in China, that's 12 hours different. So if they want to do it at 9 in the morning, their time, I'm coming into the office at 9 o'clock in the evening to get the job done, which I'm happy to do. I mean, this is part of the fun of what I do. You get to talk to a lot of interesting people in a lot of different places. I've done transactions as far away as Tasmania, Africa, Canada, a lot of stuff in Costa Rica that's going on. It's really pretty amazing.
Now, Jeff, how does this impact y'all's business in the sense of, I mean, you're so long, everybody's used to going into the title group and sign.
Right.
Does this change for you guys, your process, your issues, or does it help you?
It certainly helps. And especially for those, just think about it, especially for those, I mean, I think the average still in a lifetime, most people buy or sell a home 5-6 times in their lifetime. And there's, of course, those that's just 2 or 3, and there's those that might be 7 or 8. But so for those who have done and gone through the process a few times, they just want to sign and go. They know that I have to sign all these documents. They know that 8 pages out of 8 signatures that they go through are all about, yes, I know I have to have the appropriate insurance coverage on the home. So it's very convenient for them, whether they be in their office, whether they're at their home, working from home with their spouse. But still, right now, I went yesterday. I drove into Fort Worth because they were first-time home buyers. So there's still that TLC that they need, because there's a lot of questions that they went through. And after we went through a lot of that, they were like, okay, this really wasn't a big deal. No, but on the front end of it, to them, it was. So it's really allows us to just do more focused on what do you need as the consumer? What is best for you? What is your best scenario? And especially right now, too, I mean, of course, it is summer, but even with school still in session, so many folks were working at home. Even if they could have gone back to the office, well, I've got my kids at home now. I'm homeschooling. So it really, we find a way to meet the needs of everyone. And this with what Ken provides and his services, it allows us to do that to an even more extreme point.
That's awesome. Now, Ken, in doing these, I have different types of clients. I have military clients. They say where to sign and go. I have those engineers and lawyers that have to read every line item.
Right.
How does it work for them? Go through the experience so that, are they able to view documentations 3 days before and already have reviewed, asked questions, done things, and when they get to you, they're ready to sign. You don't have to go through every line item or wait for them to read it. Is that right?
I hope so. I mean, that's the goal. And I don't mean to be rude about that, but I mean, when we go through signing agent school, so to speak, and before we go out and do
school. Now,
I'm joking. There is no school, but when you go through the learning process to learn how to do this, and you're a notary and you go out and do transactions for title companies, you are specifically told not to offer any opinions on the documents at all. If there's ever a snag, I'm supposed to get either the realtor on the line or the lender on the line or the closing or the title company on the line. I'm not supposed to be offering any comments at all.
Yeah, Jeff, can you see me doing this job and going, you got what rate? Oh my gosh, what are you doing? I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't bite my tongue.
Well, you have to learn how to. You may not know.
Blair can't bite his tongue.
I'm a recovering wealth manager for 30 years. I have done lots of biting my tongue along the way. So it's not that tough once you get used to it. And your tongue gets a lot of scar material. You can do it for a long time. But hopefully they've read the documents. And you're right, there are different personalities. Some people just want to get through the document and knock it out as fast as they can. And then you've got others that want to dive into the detail. Now, what I tend to do, and this is just a nuance to my profession or my particular business, is before we actually transact the audio visual, I'll use just a normal off-the-shelf software like FaceTime, Zoom, what have you, to get on with a client, take a look at the documents, walk through them. And what I like to do personally is to pre-sign or paste all of these signatures, check marks, initials, anything that I need to put, even my my notarization emblem. I'll implant all of that on the document, and then I send it over to the client with now it's not signed. I haven't executed it, but it's sent over to them so they can take a look at every single mark and make sure that this is exactly what they want to sign. So by the time we get into the actual transaction, it's generally pretty simple. They have to go through a knowledge-based authentication to make sure that we know that they are who they are. And then I will simply ask them, are you aware of the document you're signing? Have you reviewed the document? And are you okay with all the marks and signatures that I've made on the document so far? At that point, we've satisfied the requirements of the law and we can move on from there. But I'm willing to take as much time as they need. And as Jeff alluded to earlier, you have some of these that are super quick, and then you have some others that can run. I've had mine run more than an hour and a half. I've had one run 3 hours, but it was a first-time purchaser, and I was by myself out somewhere, and I wasn't going to try and ask or offer any advice.
Blair, I think one of the parts, anytime I'm setting up these types of signings, except for the ones Ken has done with someone in Japan that might be 6 in the morning. I don't offer this, but no, I'm kidding. I will be online with them and talk through the documents with them. And I think the key also is, I mean, of course, you and I being in our industry, but with Ken, whether it be wills, whether it be power of attorneys, I mean, you think of all the items especially with certain folks that haven't had access to their parents who live in assisted living centers that are locked down.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, safety is the utmost concern, but so this is a method that can help anyone with any of these types of signings and documentations that helps the family.
You know what came to mind when you talked about hospitals, Ken, immediately for me was that you were executing wills for people.
Mm-hmm. Wills are part of it, but now let's be very careful here. And I've got to give a disclaimer. I am not an attorney and I'm not going to practice law. There are some attorneys in the Dallas area that will tell you a will is a ceremony. It does not have a notarial act necessarily. Now, there are other counsels that say, hey, you just go ahead and do it. And bluntly, we're kind of under some cover right now. Because of COVID-19, Governor Abbott loosened the regulations rather dramatically. And he will allow situations like we're describing where I can notarize a will, especially for somebody who's cooped up in a retirement facility or long-term care situation. We would hope that everybody would have those documents taken care of before they go into those, but we know it's a reality that it's not going to happen. I
got to believe there's less than 50% people are not prepared for that situation.
Oh, no question. No question. I mean, it's the 80-20 rule coming back to haunt us. I think only 20% of people really have everything buttoned up the way they should. And then the other 80%, it's by gosh and by golly, they hope they get through it. And they're not at the circumstances where they die without a will or without direction for somebody. It would be horrible if they did.
I've got to take a moment to our listeners to let you understand we are having a great discussion with Ken and Jeff. Please, if you have a comment, if you have something you want to talk about, bring it up in the live comments or even call us. That phone number will be on there real quick. ask us the question. We'll try to answer it. There it is, 877-337-5844. Give us a call. We'll answer it live here on the show, get you your answers. We are talking about clear to close, buying, selling of homes through the e-sign solution that is now more prevalent out there, has been available a long time, but it's just starting really to be understood and used and maximized. So wanted to go down. Now, Ken, you've been doing this now, you said for about, what, 18 months?
Close to that. About a year would really be the better way to describe it. And it started out kind of slow. And as you would expect, not a lot of people were taking it. The COVID absolutely blew it up. It became something that was just crazy. I was a mobile notary for a long time and had been doing that for clients. And bluntly, it was kind of a gut check for me as well. I was going out and doing notarizations in the middle of an emergency room for physicians that were wanting to refinance their homes. And bluntly, I was a little uncomfortable walking in there with the kind of environment that we're doing. And so I kind of shifted my business to taking less or fewer, if you will, of the mobile calls and wanting to do more of the remote online notarization. And it did come about. At some point, I don't want to lead too much here, but at some point, let's talk or have a little bit of a conversation too about the subtle differences about an ID when you do a remote online notarization.
That question, I wanted to make sure that we went through that.
Well, when you go for a traditional signing for a mortgage document or frankly wills or anything else, the notary is going to ask for your ID, and 99 out of 100 times somebody's going to pull out a driver's license and they'll use that for identification. And it's very easy, it's simple, and it's a standard that we've always used, the gold standard. But when you do a remote online notarization, I'm not present. I don't know what that document is that you're showing me for ID. It's something that could be a forgery. So there's an added level of security that is put into remote online notarizations. Again, great protection for lenders, great protection for the people involved, because what we will do is put them through what we call in the business a KBA, which is a knowledge-based authentication or assessment, if you will, to make sure that the person that's signing truly is the person they claim to be. Now, the way we do it is we ask 5 questions. These are generated by a company outside of the platform that I might be using. And those questions could be as simple as, hey, Blair, you used to live on XYZ Street. What was the street address when you lived there? Now, you have 5 questions, 4 of which you have to get correct, and you have 2 minutes to knock those questions out. If you can get all that accomplished, then I know you are who you say you are.
You better not ask me anything about when I lived in Houston. I couldn't tell you my address to save my life right now.
Well, now that brings up step number 2. You're allowed to fail the test, but you can't fail it more than twice. If you fail it twice, I have to stop the process and do it again tomorrow.
I never graduated high school, Jeff. I had that rule.
Well, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people. The first remote online notarization I ever completed was incomplete because the gentleman couldn't pass the test. I gave it to him twice and he couldn't get through it. Now, he happened to live over in Lake Highland, so I drove over there to help him out and just do a regular wet signature for him. And I was embarrassed because I thought there was something wrong. But when I was talking to him, when we were finished, he opened up to me that, hey, Ken, I came from kind of a rough family and we were living in the car and we were living wherever. And I don't even remember all the addresses where we've lived.
I don't remember.
Well, and maybe not, but I mean, all the same, he was a good guy. He had good ID, but he just couldn't get through the test.
Wow. Well, what is the difference of this online as opposed to e-signing? I hear both of them. We've kind of talked about both. I bet you our listeners are grouping this together like I would. Help us understand the differentiation.
It's very common to do it. And frankly, I thought the same thing when I got into business, but they're very, very different. And there's one very simple, subtle distinction. The remote online notarization is the only one where I'm not going to be in the same room with you. I'll be doing everything in a web-based transaction. All of the other transactions, I'm going to be present with you in the room. It's just we're doing it through an electronic medium. Instead of showing up with a stack of documents that might be 150 to 180 pages, I'm going to show up with a laptop, an iPad, or some other type of tablet, and we're going to be able to go through all the documents and get everything checked off.
That's the e-signing solution.
That's the e-signing solutions, and different platforms. I mean, Pavaso is one of them that you might see used. But if you're going to be doing a remote online notarization, you'll use a completely different platform. Now, I think Pavaso actually has moved to the remote, so maybe I'm a little off there. But the granddaddy of all of them is DocVerify, which has been around for a long, long time. And then some of the newer players are Notarize.com and NotaryCam. And go ahead.
I just want to understand what am I going to see on my screen then? If I'm going to see you, I'm going to see, do I have to have multiple screens to do all this with, or?
No, actually, and I think you probably, I know that you could do it with a tablet. I've not had good success doing it with a phone. I just don't know if it's because the phone doesn't have the power to get the job done or not, but I've used a Samsung or an iPad. I've used your regular laptops that have a camera and a microphone. And again, technology requirements, you need to have both of those if we're going to be doing something remote. But when you have the remote online notarization, you'll see something that looks a lot like Apple's FaceTime or Zoom, where you'd have two screens open up on your page. One of them will have my face in it, which is pretty scary. And then the other one will have your face as a client, and we'll be able to talk back and forth. The only platform that I've worked with personally that allows all of us to get on board and have the documents in front of us as well is NotaryCam. Excuse me. And Fidelity was very quick to embrace it early on, and I've used it for some Fidelity closings.
Okay. Well, what are we not asking? What is the thing that we're not asking about or being informed about that our listeners need to know about this, and especially the type of solution it could be doing or helping somebody out there? I see a great benefit for the us age folks signing 66 times as opposed to just once. But what other solutions are we missing, or questions that we're not asking right now?
I think one of the big things that I like a lot, and this is just a personal preference, is there's a private key interface that is assigned to every one of these documents. Now, what that means is it's a digital footprint or fingerprint that's put onto the document itself. So, for example, let's just use a simple single-page document. You've executed a signature on it. I will put my notarization on top of it, and I sign it and imprint it with a digital certificate that I have. Now, let's say time goes forward 2 or 3 years and somebody finds that document, and it still could be an electronic form. It's a PDF sitting in your email, and you want to prove to somebody, yes, I did sign it. You can actually send that document to me or to anybody else with the same platform, and they can load the document up into the platform, and the platform's going to tell them it's real or somebody's tried to alter this document since it was signed. And that shows up right away. And to me, that's a great safety feature for clients, because you don't have to worry in today's world. I mean, a lot of people are monkeying around with documents. You know that it has not been altered if you could run it through, and make sure that at least it's peace of mind for me as a lender if I'm looking at this.
It sounds like you just said title fraud is not possible, where I hear this commercial about title fraud and home being stolen or that sort of thing. This is not possible through this.
Well, it is, as long as the proper identification is done. I don't want to make any warranties or guarantees, but if somebody could get through that KBA, that's really going to be the person I'm talking to. And if I can have this thing properly sealed with the right digital certificate, that's going to eliminate most fraud. And that's my job, bluntly. It's to make sure there's no identity theft. It's to make sure that somebody's not being coerced. And by the way, that's something that's easy to do. I mean, I'm on the air right now, but I'll show you. I mean, I can have somebody take their camera and move it around and let me see whether or not there's somebody standing in the back telling them what to go do. Now, you may think that's childish, but bluntly, it happens a lot with elder people. There's somebody who's maybe a ne'er-do-well child or whatever else that wants them to sign a particular document. I've got to make absolutely sure, talking to somebody, that, hey, I'm comfortable with what she's saying and that she understands what she's doing, and that I'm okay putting my signature on here, that somebody's not creating some sort of duress in the background.
Blair, one of the documents we have people sign is stating when, they may be any of our ages, and I say, hey, this is about you are over 18 and of sound mind and body and making this decision on your own. And people will most commonly chuckle about it, but there's a reason that document is in place there, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out sound mind and body for me. I did.
Well, wait, we'll exclude you from that.
Well, it might be that the body makes a noise, right?
Hey, Ken, also, I found it very interesting. Some of the first times that you and I worked together, I have a lot of foreign investors right now buying properties, not only in the U.S. but in Texas, and not everyone can use this form of signing. Right?
That's right.
Tell us
That's right.
a little
Yep.
bit.
I will. And that's a great question. And it's something that comes up frequently, yet it gets forgotten very, very quickly, the answer to it. And if you're going to be doing this KBA, this knowledge-based assessment that I need to give everyone when we're doing a remote online notarization, they really need to have a social security number to be able to trigger or to pull that particular test. Now, does everybody have a social security number? No. Do foreigners have social security numbers? Frequently. It's not unusual for them to have it, especially if they've been over here as a student and they wanted to work. They'd have to have one in order to get the job. Go ahead, Blair.
Do you define a social security number as an I-10 number?
No, it'd be the standard 10-digit social security number that we all have because they have to be able to pull this pseudo credit report from somewhere.
Again, internationals use the I-10 number to file their taxes with the IRS, even though they're not, citizens. So that I-10 number, I didn't know if it could stand for the same or not.
Well,
sure.
What we'll do instead, and Jeff was bringing this up, is there's a situation where they don't have a social security number. There is an alternate method to get things done, and it's a credible witness statement. So what we'd like to do is find somebody that maybe is in the United States that would be able to act as a witness that, yes, they indeed know this person that's making the signature. Now, part of the service that I provide is I will bring them up on the screen with me so that they can see these people, talk to them, ask them a couple of questions, and make sure that we're really dealing with the right person and with them swearing to, yes, this is indeed Blair or this is indeed Jeff or Ken, that I can go ahead with the transaction at that point.
Hey, Blair, do you think you could get a credible witness? Okay, we'll move on from there.
We'll get people to talk about it, perhaps, right? I shouldn't be picking on him. I don't know Blair that well. I shouldn't be dogpiling on top. But
He's a lovable guy. It's too easy.
Right.
Now, in our few minutes, we've got about 8 to 10 minutes left in our time here. Where do you see this market going? Where do you see this taking our industry focused on real estate, title, purchase, sale of home, mortgages? Where do you see that moving forward?
Well, I mean, for right now in the COVID environment, I just see everything exploding and moving maybe or migrating towards the remote online notarization. My preference would be that a lot of the banking institutions and lending institutions would move more towards the e-close, the part where I'm actually present with the client, but we're doing everything with an electronic platform. I mean, countless times I've had clients ask me, why in the world are you guys still doing these transactions with all these papers? It's silly. I mean, I don't know how many trees you actually kill with this, but I mean, it's a little ridiculous to be walking in with what we do.
You can ask title how many trees they kill. I think they're invested in tree farms.
Well, I go through reams and reams of paper over here printing up documents. If it's 150 pages, I have to print 2 of them before I go out. And, not to mention, I don't like the printing costs, bluntly. I mean, I got about $15 sunk into everything before I even show up at the door. But if they were to move to the e-notarization, I think that would help things a lot. Now, remote, in the commercial world, I think it's going to start being used more than it has been in the past. There are a couple of platforms that are coming up specifically for it, and that would be more of a commercial real estate transaction. I've done a couple of those for people in California. It was a California-based signer, but it was a Washington-based transaction, so it was a little bizarre. But go ahead.
I want to shift to Jeff real quick. Jeff, there are a few mortgages that have to be signed at a title or at a mortgage company loan process.
Right.
Are those solutions, and remind our listeners what those are real quick.
That's typically a cash out refinance.
Are those allowed to be done this way now? Can we do a cash out, a reverse mortgage like this, doing it this way?
Reverse, yes. Cash out, honestly, I don't know because I have not asked. So that's something I'll go find out as soon as we get off this.
We don't know, but since we're moving in that direction, and the reasons why is just for what he's validating. He says, I want to do a fraud validation on you to make sure I'm talking to Joe Schmo, who I want to deal with, as opposed to Jane Schmo or something. It seems to me, if our industry is moving forward, all of our solutions in the market will be going that way, I would think.
Well, what was happening during the complete lockdown, the first 2 months of the pandemic, there was exceptions that were being made. Now that things have opened back up, that's why I don't want to tell you something I'm not confirmed on. And we're running, I want to say back to normal. I use that very lightly because the state has indeed opened back up. I'm not sure if those exceptions are still in place or because of our industry being or not. And Ken, you may know better than I.
Well, it's not so much a knowledge thing, but it's my understanding because I have a conversation pretty frequently with the platforms that I use, and one of them is a platform that was designed by an attorney here in the Dallas area. And it's his understanding that you still have Governor Abbott's loosening of legislation to be able to get things done. So we do have some cover for stuff right now, but my hope, my desire, and also a guess, is that the industry is going to move towards this remote platform, certainly e-closings, because it's just a lot simpler. It has great technology and it's secure. That's a big thing. I mean, that was the big bugaboo at the beginning of this, was how in the world are we going to secure all this technology? Because there's a lot of information on those pages you don't want floating around. But I'm very secure on my systems here and backups. And I can make sure that nobody can hack into what I have. Maybe I shouldn't advertise that because that probably would bring hacking. But the companies are going to put this in place, and I think it's just better for them. I'm not sure all this paper is really a smart idea at all.
Well, I would agree. And again, I think it takes people like Jeff that need to stop printing and killing trees and moving this opportunity forward.
You need to save them. Hey, Blair, one thing I'm going to point out real quick, and I know we're running out of time, but people start to assume and think, oh, what kind of crazy costs does this have? Ken's services are in line, if not in some cases better than even having an actual mobile notary going out to someone's houses. So I'm not going to, go texasnotary.com is his site. You can reach out to him and talk to him. It's going to obviously going to depend a little bit of the scenario situation. And if you make him get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I do want to point out these are very comparable to just using a standard mobile notary.
Yeah, I would have given you the same jolt if you paid me, but since you paid him to do it, okay, I understand.
We get the shameless plug in there as well. No.
we haven't even negotiated that yet. So,
well, it's really interesting. I mean, and the expansion of business too. I mean, it's you brought up a great point. I mean, earlier when we were talking about where do you think this is going to go, I'm seeing law firms embrace this a lot. Now, many times they'll have somebody trained at their own firm to be able to do it, but bluntly, they can't remember how to do it because they don't do enough of them. I do them all the time. So it's a lot easier just to call Ken and have him take care of it for you. Much, much simpler operation. And I'm more efficient. I can take care of it quickly.
How far ahead does somebody contact you to arrange something like this that you can execute on?
I have some people that are pretty consistent in either the lending realm or the buying realm. It's people that are doing home flippings or whatever else. They can call me. They can email the document, which takes maybe a minute. I can pull the document up into the platform. I can do the call, which is another 2 minutes. I can then doctor the document up, which takes me about another 3 minutes. So my start to finish, 10 minutes. If everything is smooth and they know what they're signing.
It is just 10 minutes to do something.
10 minutes. Now, I had a 30-page doc the other day, and there were some problems with it in the sense that it was whoever sent it to me did not use a very good Adobe Creator to make it. So I had to do quite a bit of massaging to get it back to normal standards. So that was a 30-page doc. It took me 25 minutes to bring it up into standards, 5 more minutes to do the transaction.
But in my world, same-day transactions are possible with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was doing work for Fidelity using Notary Cam, it was not unusual for me to do 4 or 5 transactions a day. That was pretty normal business for me.
When you were doing work with Fidelity, now you're not anymore? Is that
well, Fidelity has made some alterations. We don't want to pick on Jeff, but initially they did not have people trained to be able to use a platform. As you can tell, I'm a technology geek. I tend to go out and embrace stuff right away, and I get trained on as many different platforms as I can. Of the 6 that are available out there, I'm on 4. And so they had a shortfall of people who were able to get the transactions done. Fidelity's always been very kind to me, and I was happy to step in for them. And now they're able to do it on their own. But they had a great platform they were using. It was Notary Cam, and it's very easy to use.
I'm calling Ken always. the way he speaks, the ways he handles things, I'm always calling Ken. So it doesn't matter.
Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for today. Ken, real quick, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
The very easiest way is to go to the website. It is www.gotexasnotary.com. It has my cell phone number on there as well. You can text me if you want. I may be on the phone or doing a transaction, so be patient. I'll get right back to you. Typically, the turnaround for me is not much more than 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll call you back and we'll take care of business.
That's awesome. Jeff, in case a realtor wants to get a hold of you, let them know how to get a hold of you.
So I'm Jeff Duffy with Fidelity National Title. We're the part of the Patel Law Group, full service law firm for you. We're at 972-650-6848. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank you all again. I'm Blair Thomas. I am thrilled that you joined us today. God bless and have a safe week out there. Come back next week. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.